Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Nerd Cultured with the Sons of Glitches. I am John. We've got Remy and Mike here tonight.
Afternoon or evening or whatever it is.
It's a
Whenever
podcast.
you're listening to
It's
it.
a podcast, Remy. People could be listening to it at literally any time of the day.
And that's why I covered everything.
Just say hi.
Yeah.
Hello.
Oh my god.
I'm already getting Mike to say, "Oh my God, that's perfect." Excellent.
No, I'm not salty today. I'm in a really good mood. It's just like I you know how I am, man. I can't help myself sometimes.
Well, of course. and I have a tendency to push your buttons, and it's fun. So I will continue to do so.
Well, you know that actually brings up probably one of the points that we want to talk about tonight. Anyway, what's part of your good mood today, Mike, and how would that relate to nerds and nerd?
Oh gosh, okay, yeah. So I joined. I've gone to the dark side and got myself a PS4 Pro.
Dun 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 dun. dun.
And got. So what do I have for it so far? So, my acquisition of games was sped up by PlayStation's doing their Days of Play sale right now. So a bunch of like really good stuff was on sale for like $10 a pop. So
Nice.
For like $50 worth of games, I got Horizon Zero Dawn, Bloodborne, Last of Us Remastered, God of War, and Witcher 3 because I have problems. And
Oh man.
it had to be done. I can't.
CD
not-
Projekt Red. That's less than 2 minutes into the podcast.
I can't not.
Yep, that's right.
It's a new platform. I need to play it again. I have to get. I'm not
Do
going to
you?
have this system. Yes, I do. I'm not going to have this system and not have the platinum trophy for Witcher 3.
Oh my God.
It's got to be
Well,
done.
as a callback to our last podcast,
Yeah, it's
you
got-
got to go for platinum.
it's gotta
you
be
have
done.
a sickness. Sir.
Right. So you know that's definitely worthy of a good mood. But specifically,
hell yeah.
Why we wanted to talk about that tonight is something that is relevant to that and to gaming in general, and that's exclusive titles.
Yep.
Whether it be for PlayStation, whether it be for
Which is exactly the reason I wanted it in the first place.
right. And so maybe let's unpack a little bit here. You know what we think about it, what it does to the community, to nerds in general, to gamers. Really the biggest culprits are going to be Sony, and to me the biggest one is Nintendo.
Oh yeah.
Yes, by far.
Yeah.
For me personally, like I have a PC, I have an Xbox, and that's it. I don't have access to these titles. Some of these ones that were mentioned before, and of course any of the Nintendo titles, which are a lot of them are absolutely incredible games. Don't have and will never have because I'm not going to buy another console just to play the one or two games that are exclusive to those things.
And that makes sense.
And that's me personally, and I feel like that's a lot of gamers. So let's have kind of a round robin think tank here about what the reason we think that these things happen, and is it a good thing or a bad thing. So Mike, obviously you jumped in and said to hell with my logic here and got you a PS4. So maybe you start out and unpack that a little bit.
Sure. I mean, the way that I look at this is, if you're going to have, whether or not you think there should be proprietary IP based on a hardware platform, that's the state of the union today, right? That's just that is the way it is. That is not changing anytime in the foreseeable future. So,
Well, that's arguable.
well,
But go on.
there's a difference between will it ever change and at some point and changing in the foreseable future. So we can go back and forth. When I say foreseeable future, I mean like in the next 2 or 3 years. So PlayStation and Microsoft and especially Nintendo both have way too much money and way too much time invested in making sure that players have a reason to do exactly what I did, which is to buy multiple pieces of hardware to have access to proprietary software. I looked at what kind of games PS4 had that I just couldn't play. And Horizon, God of War, Last of Us 2, which is coming out, Until Dawn, I mean, Spider-Man. It's a long list. And I was like, shit, man. Like, I want to be able to play this stuff. I want to be able to stream this stuff. I want to be able to enjoy it. And I can tell you, fucking 10 minutes after I fired up Horizon Zero Dawn and started playing it, I was like, this was absolutely worth it. This game is gorgeous. It's amazing. And I'm so happy I did this. So, to a certain extent, I think exclusives are a good thing, because they encourage competition. They encourage, these, because if you have no exclusives, then you have no competition within the console market, really, because I mean that's what's driving Nintendo and Sony and Microsoft is a platform to pitch their exclusive IPs. Fucking Phil Spencer even said that at E3. He was like, I don't need somebody to go out and buy a Scarlet. I need somebody to buy into the Microsoft platform and invest in our software. He said that. So that's where these companies are coming from. I don't see, if anything, I don't see cross-platform for everything, every single title becoming a thing. These companies have too much invested in that not being a thing. And so from a business perspective, I just don't see it happening. It's just taking a big old pile of money and setting it on fire. And now, that being said, the gamer in me desperately wants that to happen.
Of course.
I want to be able to play, if I have Overwatch on PS4, I want to be able to play that with whoever. And if I log in on my Xbox, I want my Xbox and my PS4 to match. I want to have the same skins and the same stuff and all that, Dauntless, same thing, which is, the only title you can really do that with right now. But except,
that's going to be another thing we go into a little down the road here. But I'm curious to see on around the loop here, unless you have something additional to add specifically about exclusive titles. Remy, what do you think about the exclusive title thing? Is it a good business idea, bad business idea? We got one perspective, but obviously everyone wants to know all of ours. That's why they listen to us.
Right. So, Mike, I shockingly, I disagree with you.
Of course you do.
But, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you kind of contradicted yourself there in that opinion. You were talking about how exclusives were a good thing and all three companies were gunning for that. I feel like Microsoft is kind of the odd man out in that. Granted, the Xbox One has not been their strong console for exclusives, and I don't know that was intentional. But they've taken the fact that that's the case and really run with it. And they've become this console agnostic entity at this point, or at least that's where they're going, with the xCloud and the capability of running it on your mobile phone. And as long as you're playing their games, they don't care where you play them.
So let me clarify really quick. So, and by the way, that's not Microsoft being egalitarian. That's them seeing Sony whipping their ass in the console market and pivoting to try to make money in other places because they're getting crushed on console sales. I don't. If you're asking me if I think whether or not, if you're asking me if I think as a gamer console exclusives are a good thing, my answer is no. If you're asking me as a businessman, as a professional, yes, I do. Because so as a money-making mechanism, they are absolutely a good thing. I think they're good for the industry. I think they encourage competition. I think they push these companies to try different things. Microsoft wouldn't be doing all this, hey, take our stuff and play it wherever you want, if they hadn't gotten their ass whipped by Sony for the last 5 years.
Possibly. That's not necessarily the case.
What do you think? They're doing it out of the goodness of their hearts?
No, I think that they are seeing a business opportunity to be something unique in the marketplace.
And maybe.
But you're right. That may have led them that direction, but I think that they're going a good direction because.
I'm not saying so, but again, don't confuse me. There are two sides to me. there's the cold-eyed, cold-eyed, dead-souled business guy, and then there's
Sure.
the happy-go-lucky gamer dude. Happy-go-lucky gamer dude wants.
We haven't met that guy
yet. You've seen glimpses of him, you fucking asshole. And you know you have. I mean,
oh man.
But
God,
I'm a realist about this stuff. So don't confuse me saying that, yes, as a money-making mechanism, these are absolutely a good thing, competition, blah, 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 with, emotionally me, how I want this to play out. I would love everything to be on every platform, personally.
Well, of course. And that's the thing. But I apologize. My Discord actually went silent. I had to leave the channel and come back. So maybe I missed what you said because I came back and you were still talking.
No, not really.
But the way I'm seeing it is Microsoft is sitting in this really sweet spot. Yes, they've officially at this point lost the console war of this generation. However, they've got a business model that as long as you're playing within their ecosystem, they don't care where you are, and I think that is ingenious. I think that the fact that they're willing to play nice with Nintendo and Sony if they chose to shows a goodwill toward gamers, and that in turn will benefit them financially. So business plan being to offer their system, or rather their software at any location. They don't need to win the console war. They just need their software out in everybody's hands, being able to play everywhere. And I think that's fucking awesome. I think the ability to play on my phone, the ability to eventually play, I want to play Halo on my Switch. That's going to be a reality in the not too distant future, and that's fucking amazing. So that mentality that they're offering gamers is a very unique concept, and I think that crossplay or not, I know that's kind of where this started, but crossplay and software supremacy, I think we're in a really sweet spot for Microsoft's business plan, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how it goes, because I think it's the best thing to come to the system world in the past decade.
John, what do you think?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. All right, so we got you guys' opinions out. Now I'm going to give the correct one. So,
this guy, this fucking guy.
No, so to a certain extent, Mike, I agree with you from a business perspective. These things make sense, but I feel like that's not the entire picture, and they're missing the boat. And this is anyone that has exclusive titles, which is really everybody to a certain extent. Like I said, Nintendo's probably the biggest perpetrator of that, and then Sony's next.
Sure.
But in my mind, from a business perspective, yes, you will have some people that will go ahead and spend the money to buy the hardware because they want those exclusive titles. But then you've got the me's of the world who just won't. I'm not going to do it. I don't care what happens. I'm not going to buy a different one. Now, maybe when the next gen of consoles comes out, if Sony is far and away ahead, maybe we'll talk then. But even then, I won't get both. I won't get whatever the next iteration of Xbox is and the next iteration of PlayStation. I'll get whatever I think is the best one at the time, which is what I did here, because I started out on PlayStation. And since then I've switched to Xbox, and Xbox is what I play basically exclusively. Although I do have a PC as well. So for me, from a business standpoint, I would rather see something to the effect of, and I don't know what the right way to do it is, but you could have things that are perks for the different systems instead of just being exclusive. For example, maybe you can get a game 6 months early on a PlayStation, or for $20 cheaper on that system that it's focused on. So because I'm telling you, some of these games, yeah, sure, some of these games that we're talking about here. If they were to put them for $100 on Xbox, I'd buy them. A brand new game. I'm not talking about the old games that have been around forever that you can get for cheap now, but you know what I'm saying.
Right.
Some of these titles when they launched, maybe for $60 for the PlayStation, if they put it on $100 for the Xbox, I'd still buy it. And because it's only a handful of games that fall into that category that would intrigue me that way. Or on the flip side, if a game came out and it came out PlayStation exclusive for 6 months and then came out for everything else, so those people could have a reason to have those consoles. Because some people, if they have the expendable income to do it, they'll buy those things anyway, right? It's worth it to them to have the console, both consoles, all 3 consoles, all 10 consoles, whatever the case may be. to have those things, when they launch, and then other people, I feel like they're missing a portion of the market because there's a lot of me's out there too that are going to be in this same boat that won't buy these games or won't buy these consoles for these games, even though the games themselves look phenomenal.
So that being the case, I mean, John, if you had a PlayStation only and you were hesitant or not going to buy an Xbox because of exclusives, would what they're doing right now not be a benefit to you? Because you're going to be able to play those exclusive games via the cloud without having to own an Xbox.
Yeah, of course it would.
And I think that's where the mentality comes from. With Xbox Microsoft realizes that they've lost the war, but they can still get their hands on some of those people and get them into the ecosystem, whether they're mainstays or not. They're still going to be purchasing their software.
Are they though? A couple of points. So Remy, I agree with you that what Microsoft is doing is exciting. However, that doesn't change the fact that they've got a real dearth of they've got a real hard software dearth in terms of what they can offer that's unique and exciting to their player base. So yeah, so you can have the best platform, you can have a great cloud platform, but if Sony's got, or if I want to play Breath of the Wild, I don't give a shit about Microsoft's platform. If I want to play Last of Us 2, I don't give a shit. So these companies have so much invested, and John, I as much as I like the idea of having timed exclusives or something like that, there is not going to be. It's just not going to happen where there is this egalitarian level playing field where, hey, buy whatever piece of hardware you want. You can play everything everywhere. We all sat down around a table and we all agreed that we're going to shake hands and be buddies and we're going to let you guys play whatever you want, wherever you want. It's just not going to fucking happen. These companies have way too much time and money, and they're Sony in particular and Nintendo really in particular. So let's look at the reality of these companies, since these are the three big fish. Microsoft's a goddamn juggernaut. They could chop off the Xbox business today and they would just keep right on going. They wouldn't even blink. They don't care.
Yeah, of course.
They do not give a fuck. For Sony, it's much, much less clear. PlayStation's a much bigger chunk of their business. They're a much smaller company than Microsoft. They're getting a needed revenue stream. Okay, they're big, but they're not Microsoft big. Nintendo has a massive vested interest in controlling their IP and their hardware and driving people towards them. If the Switch,
because that's the bulk of their income.
Literally all they've got. So if the Switch had been a bust, I'll bet you Nintendo faded away. It brought them back into the conversation. I'm really happy about that. The console scene is way more interesting with them than without them.
Yep.
That being said, if I'm Sony, the reason Sony is not allowing cross-platform is because they are very, very aware that once they start doing that, the floodgates open. Okay, so if that starts becoming a thing that their player base expects, and that the people who are playing with their player base also expect, they're not going to be able to control their exclusives and ecosystem the way they have been. It's going to give people less of a reason to come to them for the hardware revenue stream, which they need. The chief of, I mean, I can tell you that, Phil Spencer, I know who he is. I don't know who runs Sony's thing, but Sony's chief of PlayStation would never have got on stage and say, well, I don't really care if people buy a PS4 or PS5 or whatever. They care. They really care.
Well, okay, so the thing about that is that the vast majority of time, at least at the beginning of a life cycle for a console, the company that created that console is taking a massive loss on hardware, which is another reason I think the Microsoft approach is. I know I sound like a major Microsoft fanboy, and to be fair, I am, but I'm not going to lie about that. But it's the consoles actually cost more to make than they sell them for initially.
Yes,
granted, that does tend to catch up later in the life cycle, 2-3 years down the line, which we are past that hump for most of these systems at this point. I think the Switch is coming up on 3 years. But to not have to take that loss right out the gate, that seems like a benefit to me. I don't know the actual numbers or anything of that nature, of course, but it seems like that would be an actual benefit that the company can expect, where they don't have to shell out that loss, but they still get the benefit of people playing in their ecosystem and buying from them.
Yeah, but they're not doing that. I mean, they're still
not yet.
I mean, fine, okay.
Right, and that's kind of the point is that we know they're not doing that, and we're just three dudes sitting around speculating.
Right, of course.
I don't think that they're necessarily going to do that for the reasons that you said, Mike. But that being said, and I never imagine them sitting around a table and shaking hands and saying, "Oh, let's all play nicely." That's not the business meeting that we're talking about. But here's my thought is that, and I said there's no numbers to back this up. This is just me talking, me thinking. I feel like
I thought I heard fuses blowing.
That's right. I feel like if
asshole.
if Sony opened up every one of these exclusive titles, and maybe it's not 6 months, maybe it's a year, maybe it's 2 years down the line, right? For their exclusive titles to other consoles, that would be a huge bump in revenue for them, because I don't know the numbers, but I'm sure that whatever console sales that they might lose from doing that, they would gain it back, and I bet plus some for the people that don't have the consoles that would buy that software. Because especially for new games, software is not cheap.
No.
Compared to the hardware. I mean, you buy
for a brand.
Exactly.
I'm not sure I agree with your logic there, though.
Well, you don't have to, but that's just what I'm thinking.
No, but I'm confused. So, what you're saying then is that if you're saying that if Sony opened up their exclusive titles to cross-platform play,
no, that's not what he's saying. I don't.
Okay,
no.
Then I'm misunderstanding you.
If they opened it up where I could go buy on my Xbox, Spider-Man.
Okay, sure.
Today, and then they could price it at whatever they wanted to. The amount of money they would make by doing that across the board would make up for any maybe console sale loss that they would have for doing that. Especially if they made it a long time. Like I said 6 months initially, but they could do a year or 2 years. I mean, imagine 2 years later, and we know these games. They're all still great games today. A lot of the games that you mentioned that you got today are older games.
Yeah, they are.
In the grand scheme of things. And and you're still super stoked to play, and I don't blame you. I would be too. And that's the point.
Hell yeah.
Right? So whatever they may have gained from having that exclusive when these games launched, if they were to make them non-exclusive and to be available on the other consoles today, it would be a huge bump in their revenue, and I think that would be a good business decision, which is my thought.
That does make sense.
I agree with okay, now that I understand it, I agree with the logic in that sense. But so the question then becomes, well, if just us three idiots sitting here on this podcast figured that out, why haven't they? And my guess is that they have looked at doing that and came to the conclusion.
I would have to assume that they looked at it, yeah.
And came to the conclusion that it was not the right move. Now, if it would be such an economic boost to them, then that it would have been, because just having you say that and us sitting here talking about this in kind of a vacuum, you kind of hear that and you go, why wouldn't you do that? The reason has to be because it would have lost them money somewhere. That's the only reason any company ever does anything. So,
well, sure.
Somebody who is, probably has an abacus on their desk for sentimental value, sat down and figured it out and just went, nope, I ran the numbers and we shouldn't do it, and here's why. Ultimately, I don't love or hate the idea of exclusives. I just kind of deal with the reality of them. And at the end of the day, I love games. And so, in my house right now, I have an Xbox One, I have a PS4, I have a Switch, I have a gaming PC, because if I want to be able to get my grubby little fingers on all the things that I want to be able to get my grubby little fingers on, and this is my only hobby, that's worth it to me. John,
Yeah.
it's not
Sure.
worth it to you. So whatever the
Right, exactly.
whatever the landscape may look like, 3, 4, or 5 years from now, is it going to be software driven? Yes, it's going to have to be, because the entire world's going cloud. But that being said, that doesn't necessarily make everything accessible to everybody. Like that, the Microsoft xCloud, Google Stadia, all that stuff sounds great in principle. You've got a long way to go before you can prove to me that I can stream over a Wi-Fi connection to my phone a high-fidelity Halo experience.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing if it works or not. Honestly, it could fail miserably.
Exactly. So this is all stuff that, it's like hype. Okay, it sounds great. How many things have we seen that was like, oh, that sounds great, and then it sucks? So, for now, I think, like it's worth it to buy. Like, if just having one for a day, I'm happy I have one, a PS4. Like it's like, yeah, it's fucking awesome. Look at all this cool shit that I can play now.
And the biggest thing for me, I also own all the systems and a gaming PC, but the frequency of which I play anything but my Xbox is 0 to none.
Okay, so why is that?
Honestly, I think it's mostly due to the design of the controller. That's a huge portion to me. And it's little things like I already pay for Xbox Live. I'm not going to pay for PlayStation Plus. I have the Switch. I bring it with me occasionally. Quite honest, I'm not entirely sure where my Switch is at the moment. So
It's in a box
just
somewhere.
You lost your
think
Switch.
I think it's in the box under my desk right at my feet right now, but I'm not 100% sure about that.
Okay, that means it's lost.
No, I could poke my head in there and probably find it. But regardless, it's
Okay.
it's a matter of I prefer the controller that the Xbox has created. I have a try that again. A headset that plugs in and works well with my Xbox. It's a Microsoft headset. It works great. I have all my achievement history on the Xbox ecosystem. I have all of my gaming history. I have almost 450 games on the Xbox system. To start a whole new collection or to go out and buy a game for another system when I've got this entire catalog that I haven't touched seems kind of silly to me.
Well, but why though? I mean, so let me posit it to you in a different way.
Okay.
You going out and I mean the controller issue being what the controller issue is,
Which I found a solve for, by the way.
Okay.
There is a third party company that makes an Xbox-esque controller that works for the PlayStation, which I intend to buy because I want to use my PlayStation.
Okay, so let's take that and set it aside then for a minute. So I get having. I mean, I'm most of my stuff's in Microsoft's ecosystem too. Certainly recently. Why would having your achievement points and a game library in one system? You've got a PS4. If you see a game come out for it, you see Spider-Man come out. What does any of that over on the Microsoft side have to do with you being like, hey, that game looks fun, I'm going to go play it? Who gives a shit if the achievement points aren't going into the same pool? I mean,
honestly, I feel like it's wasted time.
Why?
That's just, I'm telling you the answer. I feel like it's wasted time.
You feel like it's wasted
so many...
time because it's not putting achievement points against your Xbox gamer score?
It's when you put it that way, it sounds stupid, but yeah,
that's going to diminish. That's going to diminish your enjoyment of the game. Really?
No, and that's really not the heart of it. The controller thing is the biggest issue I have. I don't like the Switch controller. I don't like the PlayStation controller. I'm comfortable playing on an Xbox.
Okay.
That is a solvable problem that I intend to solve because I do want to use these systems more. I have them. Why the fuck don't I use them? And that's really what it boils down to is, yes, the achievement thing. I like watching my achievement score go up, of course. Ultimately, I don't care that much about that. But all my friends are on Xbox. All my gaming history is on Xbox. Why bother? That's kind of what the mentality is. But I do want to use those other things. I have the Nathan Drake collection. I have The Last of Us remastered. I have a number of games for the PlayStation that I just haven't played, and I'd really like to experience some of the Horizon Zero Dawns and the Spider-Mans and things like that. But you also know me, and I'm not the biggest single-player person.
Now, granted,
it does take some time for me to get into those.
And part of the reason that, I mean, if you look at the games that I'm most excited to play about,
Right.
to play on PS4, it's all, their exclusives are, for the most part, really, really, really good story-driven single-player action RPG style stuff.
Right.
Which is why I was like, fuck yeah, this is worth it to me. And so that is, like, if I had known that at the start of the last console generation, I probably would have gotten a PS4 instead of an Xbox. However,
I'm glad you didn't.
I was about to say, however, had I done that, we wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation. So
It's very true.
But I'm certainly pleased that I have both. I mean, John, what do you? At what point? I'm interested in this because at what point does it become worth it to you, if ever?
I was kind of curious of the same. Where does the scale tip?
Yeah, because
to buy another console,
or to branch out. I mean, like I get it, but I mean, you're sitting here saying, well, if they release these games for $100 a pop on Xbox, I'd buy them. You buy 3 of those, that's the cost of at $100. That's the cost of a PS4. So, what's the?
Well, so here's the thing. Ultimately, at the end of the day, yes, you're right, buying 3 of them, but those would be brand new titles. Obviously, a lot of these games we mentioned are years old, and that price point wouldn't make sense for that. Nobody would ever buy them.
No,
but my idea is launched if you didn't want to do a wait period for exclusives that we talked about, and you wanted everything to launch same day. $60 on the PlayStation for a PlayStation exclusive, and then or for something that's made by Sony, right? And then $100. That to me would make sense because really I'm only spending $40 extra of what I normally would spend. And so if you look at it that way, it'd take a long time for me to get to that threshold of whatever the PS4 costs. And to Remy's point as well, and I'll kind of expand on that a little bit. Probably 9 times out of 10 when I'm playing games, I'm playing them with you guys or people from our community or whatever.
Yeah.
And so our most common denominator here is Xbox.
Yes.
So to me, to have a $300 piece of hardware sitting here that I'll only use for about 10% of my gaming, why would I have it? And so because I don't, and maybe if I was a single man and I had unlimited free time, it would be different. I wouldn't mind it then because I would have time to sit down and play all these single player games and things like that, in addition to being able to enjoy the multiplayer experiences that we all have together.
All right, so wait a minute. I'm going to call you out on that one a little bit.
Call me.
How many games didn't you just finish that misspelled vampire game?
Well, and then you're going to give me shit about saying this too and about dragging it out. But the only reason I had time to finish that was because I've totaled my car on Monday and I've been sitting at home all week. That is literally the only
as
reason.
good a reason as any.
All right, no, that's a pretty good reason.
Yeah. So, yeah. But otherwise, that game probably would have taken me 2 or 3 months to beat because generally, and I still do this to this day. I have a couple of hours that I play on Saturdays when my kids sleep, single player games.
Yeah.
I set that aside. I don't Twitch. I don't multiplayer. I don't do anything. I sit down and veg out for a couple of hours in these single player games. And so, I mean, Mike, a lot of these type games are very, very long. Imagine doing them in 2 hour chunks. How long it would take you to complete Witcher 3, or how long it would take to complete.
It'd
Right.
take forever. I mean, but
Exactly.
So, to that point, part of the reason I wanted the PS4 and I wanted some of these games is because I know that there is a portion of our community that loves watching this stuff, and I know that there's certainly people on Twitch that enjoy watching them as well. So
Sure.
There's a little bit of that side of it too, which is like, fuck yeah, I want to stream Last of Us. Fuck yes, I want to stream God of War. I want to experience that. alongside the people that tune in to watch our stuff. So,
and to be perfectly clear, I'm not in any way judging you for getting a PlayStation.
I feel like you're judging me a little bit.
I don't. No, I'm really not. Hey, dude. At the end of the day, your console. How many consoles you guys have? Obviously, you both have all of them. I just have the one.
Right.
It's you guys' money. Spend on whatever you want to. It's not far be it for me to judge you. I don't care. But the point is for me, for my situation, for my money spent, I'm not going to buy these things to only play. To only spend 10% of my gaming time playing them.
No, I think that's...
that makes perfect sense.
If these things came out on the Xbox, these exclusive titles, like we talked about before, especially the ones that have been out for a year or two, or if they did on launch date, like I said, there's a few different things that I think would work. But like you said, Mike, some bean counter somewhere was like, well, never mind, we're not going to make any money doing this, and that's why they're not doing it.
Right.
And that's great. But I just think that there are a lot of people that are like me out there that have that same mentality.
John, there's nobody out there like you. You're one of a kind, baby. You're one of a kind.
That's probably true too.
My soulless Southern Irish ginger.
Jesus Christ.
What?
Oh man, but
nothing at all.
Real quick here.
Tell me I'm wrong.
While we're, well, you're not wrong. Real quick here, while we kind of, I feel like we've all said our piece here on this, and we, of course, as usual, all slightly disagree, but. Mike, you brought up something in your original breakdown there that I wanted to come back to, and that's outside of the realm of exclusive. It's cross-platform play, which up until recently was not a thing at all, and then it was a thing between Xbox and PC, which kind of makes sense with Microsoft being what it is and how they work.
Yeah, it's all just Windows, really. I mean,
yeah, you're right. Yeah. So, but now we have a new game that's launched recently that is completely, to my knowledge, the first completely cross-platform experience. In Dauntless, and you brought that up before, and we've all played it. We played it together. We've played it on people. We've played it on with community members that are on PlayStation, that are on PC, so let's take a second here and talk about that. Really, my first question would be how do they do that? With right. Sony,
how they come out
just
of
talked
nowhere.
about with these places that are as Mike's put it, they're never going to do this because it would be stupid and they would lose all this money and set a big pile of money on fire and blah 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 blah. Well, Dauntless does it. How do they do it?
Dauntless is free to play. That's why it works with free to play titles. And so when you look at Fortnite's the exact same way, or Realm Royale, or pick your free to play and have fun with what I'm saying. If a game is free to play, and it has an in-game store where the money is not going to Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, whoever, it's going to the developer, then I mean to a certain extent, I can see why those companies would agree to it, because who gives a shit? We're not getting any money from the game. We're not making any money from the store. We're basically a hosting service for this. If our player base wants to play it, great. Nobody is going to switch platforms for a free-to-play title. Never. In a million years. So I can absolutely see. So from Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo's perspective, it's a win-win-win, right? So, okay, so minimal cost, minimal effort on our part, low negative impact to... or no negative impact to us seeing players bail on our platform for another's, and we look like fucking rock stars because we're like, hey, you can go play with your Xbox buddies now. See how cool we are?
And that's probably a big part of it. The interesting thing to me is there's been several free-to-play games up until now, and this hasn't been a thing. At the very least between Xbox and PlayStation. Like I said PC and Xbox have been playing nice for a little while longer, but for example, the Fortnites or Apex or things like this. I mean, there's been several titles that have released that haven't done this thing. But I do agree that the reasons you said probably is why. But maybe it just now came up to somebody who was like, "Hey, this is a good idea." They were sitting back around that table you were talking about, shaking hands and playing nice. Okay, there we go.
Yeah,
it comes back around.
Now, Remy, what do you think?
I think that what you're saying makes sense. I think that's probably the reason. But there have been a number of free-to-play games like Fortnite, for example, which is made by the same people that made Dauntless that they wouldn't play nice with.
Yep. and it's still not.
Yeah, Fortnite is also free to play. It's a huge game. Well, at least it was. I don't know what it looks like these days, but the fact that it's made by the same company, it's free to play. It's got the battle pass. It's virtually identical, just a different goal in the game. I don't understand the logistics of why both aren't free to play and why we're not seeing a wider variety. Things like Rocket League, which is also free to play now, I believe. Things like I don't know, the ones that are what is it? Apex Legends, that you can't crossplay. It just, your logic makes perfect sense, but why don't we have these other opportunities if that's the case?
My guess would be, and this is a guess, by the way.
Well, of course, this is all speculation. We
yeah,
get that.
I mean,
That's it. Yeah.
You know, but when I say it's a guess, I mean all the reasons that I just laid out why they did it with Dauntless. You can point to a little bit of evidence here and there that supports some of that. But what I'm about to say, there's no evidence. This is really just me like making a guess, which is that somebody somewhere within Sony, because they've clearly been the ones that are dragging their feet the most on this because they have the most to lose with this console generation, right? They don't want to sacrifice their top spot. Somebody somewhere in an office in, I'm guessing, Japan, walked up
Paint the picture.
Walked up to somebody else and was like, "Why don't we dip our toe in the water one time on this and see what happens? Let's see what happens." Worst case scenario is it doesn't work out for us and we don't do it again, and we're doing it with a free to play title that's, you know, got a little bit of hype around it, but it's not a huge screaming deal. It's not like the game of the year. And what's the worst that could happen? And best case scenario, it goes really well. We make a bunch of money. Everybody thinks we're heroes, and you know, maybe we try it, and maybe we try it again. I would imagine that the reason that you haven't seen that with Fortnite, Apex, you know, Rocket League, Destiny, Overwatch, blah 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 blah. The reason you haven't seen that with the other titles is because if I'm Sony, it's going to take me a long time to pull the trigger on that. I'm not, until, you know, somebody would have to show me some kind of really solid evidence that would lead me to believe that yes, this is a smart thing to do. Yes, this could make us some money. Yes, this will be good PR. All this kind of stuff. In order for me to say I'm going to give up that control, I'm going to give up that what's the word? I mean, it just I'm going to
they're the top dogs at the moment.
Right. I'm going to open the gates a little bit and let somebody sneak in and let them into the castle. Okay.
Right.
You know, that's not an easy conversation to have or an easy decision to make. So and by the way, wasn't really super relevant until relatively recently. So, you know, we feel like this conversation's been going on forever. It really kind of hasn't.
Well, that's not entirely true. The last generation, actually Xbox, Microsoft was the holdout because they were winning the generation war. So now that they're losing, they're all on board.
Well, right. That goes to the point that I made earlier, which is they're like, no, guys, look at this cool thing we're doing because, right, us too, right? You know.
Of course, and I totally get that, but it's whoever's got that top spot doesn't want to play nice, which is a really shitty approach to take, especially when your customers are the ones being played with. But do you think that if Microsoft were to just knock it out of the park with Scarlet and PlayStation 5 doesn't keep up, do you think that we would see a change in tone? Or do you think that we would see this continued resistance from Sony?
History says we'd see a change in tone.
Right. And so do you think we see a change in tone from Microsoft as well? Or do you think that they've set this in stone and this rock is already rolling downhill?
Oh, I don't
Probably
think
both and.
I don't think. No, I think we see a change in tone from Microsoft as well because we've seen them before.
Yeah, both and. Yep, that's exactly that.
We have, but the leadership at both companies has changed, has it not?
Yeah, but it could change again.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right.
The history tells us that you're 100% correct. History tells us whoever's in that top spot doesn't want to share their toys. I cannot envision that. Look, Microsoft walks shit back all the time. They change stuff all the fucking time. And, everybody... The thing that's still freshest for all of us is the Xbox One X launch, or the Xbox One launch, rather. It's sort of like this gigantic PR disaster. But there was some good stuff in there that got lost, and I'm think,
so bummed about that.
but that's the point. So if Microsoft came out, announced a bunch of shit that was actually really good, that nobody could hear over their own fanboy rage, that they then walked back, stuff that had been in development for a long, long time, they could kill this fucking xCloud thing tomorrow. And it may never see the light of day. So, from my standpoint, yes, absolutely. I think that if Microsoft finds itself sitting atop the heap again, they're just going to go, no, we're going to go off and do whatever the fuck we want. We're Microsoft, and God knows what the hell that leads to. But
right. The thing that I've noticed in this generation of consoles. Nintendo has always been the wild child. They always do this weird shit, the movement controls, the portable consoles. They're always looking for something
Sega,
unique.
Man. They're the new Sega.
And that's what's wonderful about Nintendo is just they like to fuck around and they make good shit. Period. That's just what Nintendo does. They're playing their own little game off to the side over here. And occasionally they join in the fun. But with Microsoft losing this generational war, I think it's made a positive spin on the company. They've looked for more innovative ways to make their product more attractive. I think that has done very, very well for them this generation.
Oh no, I totally agree. From a software and services standpoint, that they're pushing the envelope and they're doing a really good job of it. But
so do you think that would change if the tides were to turn? Do you think that we'd see them kind of keep status quo because they're afraid to break what they made?
Maybe.
Or do you think, and vice versa, do you think we'd see Sony trying to do some unique stuff, which we've never seen Sony try to do anything unique? They've always been, we make consoles, we make games, here you go. That's just been their MO, period.
I have some thoughts on that, but John, what do you think?
Ultimately, there's no way to tell, but I always feel like in anything that the person that's just behind first place always tries a little harder. And I don't necessarily agree with your thing, Remy, about Sony never trying anything, because they tried the little what was the little controllers with the balls on them? You know what I'm talking about.
The what?
My testicles?
Oh, the PlayStation Move. Okay,
yeah,
okay, fair enough. You know what? You're right. They have done the VR and the Vita thing, so.
Yeah.
So they've done some things.
I stand
but ultimately,
corrected. All
right. I feel like anybody in second place would kind of push a little harder, try a little more to get that top spot back, and then the inverse happens again. And that's just how this thing works. I mean, and that's with any business anywhere.
Also, let's not forget, the reason that Microsoft can try the stuff that they're trying is because they have a entire other segment of their business that they can use for their gaming platform. Sony kind of doesn't.
Right. If they crash and burn, then it's not going to take down the entire company.
Right. So, but what I mean by that is what's supporting xCloud and what's supporting the PC, Xbox crossplay and the streaming and all that kind of stuff is all Microsoft's Azure Cloud and their Windows development team and their massive data centers that they use to host their cloud platforms that they use for their enterprise software products,
right?
And all this kind of stuff. Sony doesn't have any of that.
Right, that's very true.
They don't have that kind of infrastructure. They don't have that whole other R&D team that they can lean on. They don't have these extra resources. They don't have all this all this extra money. I mean, Microsoft can.
It's got a lot of toys to play with.
Well, and not only that, they can sit there and lose money hand over fist on Xbox forever, and it's barely going to be a blip on their balance sheet. So, from that standpoint, Sony, Sony has to stay their lane in a certain sense because yes, they make hardware and they make and they're putting out games, but you can say what you want, but the numbers bear out. For the last 5 years, they've done that better than anybody else on the planet.
Oh, for sure. I'm not arguing that Sony dominated.
Oh no, but I'm saying so. If that's your cash cow, and if that's where there is something to be said for staying in your lane.
You have to play it a little more safely.
Right.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
So they're clearly seeing how did they win this console war. Microsoft tried to take the Xbox One and turn it into be like, hey, we're taking over your living room, digital entertainment. It's all going to be cloud. It's going to be great. It's going to be this. It's going to be that. TV, movies, all this stuff. And the gaming community looked at them and said, fuck yourself in the face. That's not what we want. And Sony swooped in very smartly and said, guys, video games.
We got video games and we got something you can play them on. Let's go.
Video games on something that is going to run them better at a lower cost than what the guys across the street are selling you, and the gaming community fell over themselves trying to blow them in the street. So there's...
Wow.
Well, there's an analogy.
There's an image. Yeah.
Tell me I'm wrong. I'm not wrong.
No, you're absolutely
not
right.
wrong.
Now,
not wrong.
But I mean... I've never seen... I mean, people fled from Microsoft. Look, gamers are really passionate, and you've got to take into account that ultimately what people want here is people want great games on a platform that feels like that they feel understands that they want to. So nobody's gonna give a fuck if Microsoft is letting us play Halo on our phones if the next Halo title isn't any good. When was the last time you really heard somebody talk about Halo 5? It's been a while.
2 days ago.
You know what I
really
mean,
angry.
you know what I mean, God damn it. But I'm just saying, like, Sony did a better job of appealing to the sensibilities of gamers.
Right, of course. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, gaming is a bigger industry than music, movies, television combined globally.
Yep.
So,
which is crazy to think about.
That's
not
absolutely fucking insane.
I bet a lot of people didn't know that, and they're like, "Oh, fuck me."
It is, and by the way, it's not even close.
No, GTA 5 is still the largest entertainment property to have ever existed.
Yep.
Period. That is just fucking mind blowing. So, Mike, you're obviously wrong there. Anyway.
No.
Mentioned
just because something is popular doesn't make it good. Don't feed me that bullshit.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, you mentioned the computing power and the cloud power that Microsoft has to work with.
Yes.
Now, did both of you watch the xCloud presentation, and did you do any research into it or anything like that?
I've read a couple of articles on it, but I didn't watch the presentation, and I haven't researched it very much.
No. Okay.
No.
All right.
Let's say that I'm completely ignorant on everything.
Well, the coolest thing I've found that I'm looking forward to seeing how they're able to pull it off. Like, Mike, I'm hesitant. I know that this could fail miserably. It could fall flat on its face. I'm hoping it doesn't because the concept and the idea is fucking incredible.
Oh, it totally is. I hope it works. I really do.
But I think it's bitchin' that it's going to be... You can either use their store of Xboxes, essentially their computing what the fuck do you call it, the server, their server, their servers to run your games off of,
their server farm, yeah.
Or you can turn your Xbox into a server for you specifically, so that you are the only one running off of that system.
Well, it's a very cool idea, but I mean the entire and we're getting really, really technical and nerdy right here. But the entire issue then becomes bandwidth and latency.
Oh, for sure, absolutely.
If you don't have somebody like our buddy Mikey, Magic Mike, up in upstate New York, this is just a non-starter for him.
Well, no, because he can then use the Microsoft servers.
Yeah, but his internet connection is so crap that you still got to connect to the servers. So it doesn't matter how much power cranking out of those servers if your internet connection is garbage. And
I see what you're saying. Okay, so if you were at home trying to use this service, then it wouldn't work.
Right, it's impossible.
Yeah.
So
the remote areas, of course, that's going to be an issue.
Right. So I mean, there's always going to be, but I mean, Google Stadia is going to have the same problem, which is that unless you, and by the way, super fast internet, you want a 1 gig internet connection, it's still not cheap. So
no.
There's additional cost associated there, and Google's service at least, is gonna be tiered. So there's a paid tier and there's a free tier, and
right.
Okay, so what does that mean for connectivity and all this kind of stuff? But that's a whole other conversation altogether. But
that's one we don't have time for today.
We're in the deep end of the swimming pool.
Yeah, no, but I mean, I really do hope it works.
Me too. I'm so excited for it.
The only thing that I don't love about it is my final thought for this podcast, though. The only thing I don't love about it is I don't love the idea of not owning any of my games. In the sense that, like, if it's on my Xbox, it's on my PlayStation or my PC, it's mine, I have it. I don't need to... I don't know about that.
How is that different from anything right now? I mean, if you have a
It's
physical...
currently like that unless you have discs.
Right, if you have a physical disc, even then, if you connect to the internet, they could kill that game if they wanted to.
Well, that's not universally true. But in terms of... I mean, this settle down there, slugger.
That's a new one.
But I mean, this goes to, like, you guys trying to convince me about... Like, I'm probably still one of the only assholes that still buys music off of Google Play or iTunes. Everybody else uses Spotify.
Nope. That's not true. I also use Google Play.
Okay, good to know.
But I understand how Spotify works.
But you're the only two assholes that do that.
Yeah, well, it's just because Spotify is just a fucking radio. That's all it is. It's a goddamn radio. We've had that for years. Except now it's on your
fancy radio.
Now it's I don't fucking give a shit. I want to be able to pick. I want to be able to pick what I'm listening to, and I don't want to have to pay somebody a monthly fee to do it. Thank you very much.
See, I pay Google for that. So
nah, fuck that noise. No way.
Well, we've already discussed that. Everybody spends money on every streaming thing that exists. Period.
Not every one of them.
Most of them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, we actually talked.
I mean,
we actually talked about video game shit for a whole podcast again. This might be
the whole time.
That's like 2 so far.
This might become a thing. two out of what is this, episode 9?
I believe so.
Well, ultimately we had two what I think really good topics to talk about.
Yeah.
With the exclusives and with the cross-platform play, which I will say, and we'll wrap up here because we're getting pretty close to the end. I will say that we didn't touch on it, but if you haven't played Dauntless, play Dauntless.
Yeah, give it a shot.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, give it a shot.
It's free, as we discussed. It's on all platforms and cross-play on all platforms. You can play with your friends no matter what they play on. Kind of a rip-off of Monster Hunter if you want to kind of get the 5-second review.
It's a more accessible Monster Hunter.
More accessible Monster Hunter, which funny enough, I remember having this conversation with Remy when Monster Hunter launched, whether or not we would be getting it to play, and he was like, you know what? I don't like the idea of going to fight a monster with a timer on it. That sounds stupid.
I still don't.
Here we are with Dauntless.
I still don't like it.
30-minute timer on every mission, and he enjoys the fuck out of it. So
yeah, still don't like that concept. I really don't.
Well, I
don't like to be put on a timer.
I am looking forward to next episode to diving into some of the new stuff that's coming out over the next few months and next year. There's
for sure. Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Gaming
next
backlog.
Episode, there will be lots of things to come.
Yeah.
Which we initially planned on talking about that now, but someone here is long-winded.
We didn't have time.
So.
Nope.
That being said, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up here. We don't want to bore you people too long, but thank you so much for everyone who came out to listen. And if you like this, any of our media, check out thesonsofglitches.com.
That's right.
And we will catch you next time.
Thanks,
Have
everybody.
a good night, folks.